You know, actually, this isn't entirely dissimilar from what we're going to talk about in the next block, which is Elon Musk and the Anti-Defamation League. It's a pretty interesting back and forth, and not also dissimilar from the one we talked about recently with the Center for Countering Digital Hate, which Musk, there's a lawsuit where Musk accused the Center for Countering Digital Hate of hurting X's basically relationship with the advertisers, and that's from The Guardian. But The Guardian also is now digging into what's going on with the ADL and Elon Musk, and it's very similar. It's about advertisers. So reading from them again, it says Elon Musk has threatened to sue the Anti-Defamation League after accusing the US-based civil rights group that campaigns against anti-Semitism and bigotry of trying to, quote, kill his X social media platform. The owner of X, formerly known as Twitter, said the ADL was trying to shut down his company by, quote, falsely accusing it and me of being anti-Semitic. In a series of posts, Musk said advertising sales for the business were down 60%. And, quote, based on what we've heard from advertisers, ADL seems to be responsible for most of our revenue lost. He also said, quote, it looks like we have no choice but to file a defamation lawsuit against the Anti-Defamation League, ... Oh, the irony. He also said that he wants to be, quote, super clear. He's in favor of free speech, but, quote, against anti-Semitism of any kind. Now, the ADL is saying that anti-Semitic posts on X increased sharply after Musk bought the site back in October 22, and the platform subsequently reinstated extremists and conspiracy theorists while allowing the harassment of former members of its now dissolved Trust and Safety Council. A lot of money on the line here, clearly. It does remind me of what some conservatives, an argument you hear from some people on the right and in the center even about ESG, that you can have one index that is following, you know, whatever the rating system is, whatever the environmental score system is, and, you know, you'll get BlackRock embracing it. And this affects a wide swath of businesses. It really affects where money is going. It affects all of that sort of stuff. And so I think Elon Musk is making a similar thing, that, like, if people are funneling their ad decisions through the Anti-Defamation League, then, and the Anti-Defamation League has a bias against him. If you buy that argument, which I mean, I do, but we probably disagree on that. If you buy it, then all of these advertisers are going to be affected by a source that's not neutral. But I don't think they purport to be neutral either.
Right. Well, first of all, let's score the hypocrisy. Like, this guy is a free speech absolutist who is now trying to sue his second organization for their speech. And his top investors are recently, Saudi Arabia, recently implemented a death penalty for somebody for a retweet at 8 followers.
Yeah.
A retweet. And this is, he has said nothing about that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a business partner with somebody in a major enterprise and they use your activity on your business enterprise to give somebody a death penalty for a retweet, you're free to speak up and say, you know what, can we not do that?
Right.
How about not? How about we don't kill that guy for a retweet? Since, you know, that goes against my beliefs as a free speech absolutist. Anyway, so taking him seriously for a second, which I don't think he is. I think he just made a joke about defamation and defamation. I don't think he's actually going to sue.
He just wanted the joke.
Yeah. But I think he also said that discovery as a part of this lawsuit will show whether or not it's true that the ADL pressured all of these companies to pull out their advertising money, and then that's why Twitter's worth half of what it used to be worth. The idea that you're going to win your advertisers back by suing them and going through their emails is, like, it couldn't be any more absurd.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you're going to win your advertiser back. And secondly, the idea that anybody needed the ADL to step away from advertising on Twitter is also absurd. So his theory is that if not for the ADL privately reaching out to these corporations, these giant corporations, Dove, Unilever, Coca-Cola, all the others, would just be bidding against themselves to get their advertisement under Cat Turd 2's hundreds of millions of impressions. Like, if the CEO, then CEO, is just constantly engaging with Cat Turd and all of his friends, it's very clear to the entire world what type of platform it is. And then advertisers can decide whether or not they want to be part of that. the fact that the ADL was saying the exact same thing that everybody else was saying about the platform. He also flamboyantly unbanned a bunch of people who had been banned for saying like viciously anti-Semitic stuff. So you're like, okay, like you're going to blame the ADL for that? And I'm no fan of the ADL. I think that they have stretched the definition of anti-Semitism for political purposes in order to kind of shut down any criticism of the Israeli government, for instance. However, in this case, I just don't think. I think if the ADL never even existed, people would have clearly seen the changes that he publicly said he was making at Twitter.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's wrong. Although I do think the ADL and I think the SPLC, which we've talked about here before, the SPLC is in a pretty gnarly lawsuit where it had to admit that it wasn't, totally neutral and non-biased. I do think those have had sweeping, chilling effects on not just conservative organizations, but some other organizations. That said,
I think that's true, but that's different.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And but the definition inflation, it also reminds me of what we're talking about in the last segment. But this is where it's an impossible circle to square, because I think one of the things people loved about Twitter in the first place, in the halcyon days where Jack Dorsey was, renegade, is that it was this open platform where people were dunking on racists and people with horrific arguments, bad ideas, and it was, there was a time when Twitter wasn't really even quite that political and it was more just fun. But there was also a time where, like, you went to Twitter and the level of open speech just embarrassed everybody who was remaining, still had these like lingering bigoted sentiments. They looked ridiculous. I mean, that was the beauty of these exchanges, is that these minority voices, I think, if anything, they were empowered by people who freaked out and tried to say, like, you don't belong on the platform. There was something really powerful about when they were on the platform and getting absolutely torched nonstop. And there was something that people looked at that and was like, yeah, this is what we do. Like, this is what we can all agree the boundaries of decency and political speech are. We don't necessarily need Big Brother in Silicon Valley or the government to make these decisions for us. But that's obviously not happening anymore, because when you rely on corporate advertising dollars, it doesn't matter. Like, they don't want their content next to, for instance, here's a good one, libs of TikTok. I'm reading from my colleague David Harsanyi. He says Elon Musk contends that the ADL wants him to ban the libs of TikTok, a popular account run by an Orthodox Jew, Chaya Raichik, who gained fame by reposting real leftists saying real things. It's certainly plausible, considering the ADL already has an entry for Raichik in its, quote, glossary of terms. But, well, Harsanyi says, I'm not a big fan of nitpicking. I haven't seen anything in her feed that could rationally be construed as anti-Semitic. And that speaks to the problem of who gets to decide what, quote, hate speech entails. And so it's fine. I mean, that's the problem with Twitter. If you want to be in this business, you're going to have a hard time being in the ad sales business.
Right, yeah.
These two things seem utterly irreconcilable, even though Twitter, and we've talked about, like, making Twitter a public, utility before, because it's, basically this de facto town square for a very particular kind of speech. I mean, it's a good, like, in this context, there's some good reason for that, because if you're looking at this and you're expecting advertisers to prop up a platform where you necessarily, in order to be a fair platform, allow people to speak their mind and say things that not everyone's going to agree with, who are you going to get to advertise there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, make it an actual public square.
An actual public square.
I think my idea should be adopted. I already solved the Catalan independence crisis, the Twitter crisis.
That's right. If you didn't catch Ryan solving the Catalan independence crisis, just check out our video on the Spanish Soccer Federation head, because that's where you'll find it.
Yeah, you just have Twitter be owned by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and you have 5 board members. The right can pick 2, the left can pick 2, and then whoever wins the White House gets to pick 1. And then they kind of like battle it out. Marjorie Taylor Greene can be on there, Elon can be on there, whatever. And they set policy, and maybe they even have to run. They have to get elected, so we can all kind of democratically weigh in on how we want this public square. And in order to be on, you have to show your driver's license. I don't know. MTG can figure this out when she and like Van Jones are on the board together or whatever.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing with Twitter. It's that nobody I mean, you can try to go to a subscriber model, basically, which is, in some ways what Substack is doing. If the New York Times thinks its advertising revenue is going to be hurt because it now has this really small niche consumer base that's able to pay a lot of money, you have these educated sort of liberal people who have disposable income and can pay for the New York Times. They don't want to see Tom Cotton's op-ed in 2020 in the New York Times. So the New York Times takes it down, not for any journalistic reason. I would argue that was a pretense, but they take it down either way. And then you can go to Substack, which is basically Barry Weiss ends up at Substack, is doing fabulously well in Substack, and it solves the New York Times advertising problem. That's not great for journalism, and I don't think it's great for the public square either if we can't coexist together because we're all propped up by these niche different advertising areas, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe a subscriber model can work for X. It's still very much in flux and in transition between what it was and what Elon Musk wants it to be. So I guess we'll just have to wait.
Yeah, we will.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.
Help us build independent news and get the full show every morning at breakingpoints.com.